So,
oh, cool. Welcome, Ness. Thank you for coming. So yeah, if, maybe we'll just start. Stolen from Africa, aka Logic.
Peace.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just introduce yourself.
Yeah, what's going on, y'all? Respect for coming through. My name is Logic. I am the founder of Stolen from Africa, which we are a black arts, well, we're a few things. We're a black arts education organization here in Toronto, so we work with marginalized youth in schools, working on like emotional intelligence, leadership skills, personal skills, and basically just trying to, get them on their way. We also have like a strong focus on like hidden Black Canadian history. Oftentimes when people hear about, slavery in North America in general, they just kind of like, connect that to America, or they hear about like the Underground Railroad and how, enslaved Africans, followed the North Star with Harriet Tubman and came to Canada and found freedom and lived happily ever after the end, like a fairy tale. Nah, B, that's not what happened. So we spend quite a bit of time just getting into those spaces and really just like, having a critical thought and really showing that there's a lot more to the Black experience than what's being taught. Like there's incredible like stories that are out here in Canada. So we kind of focus a lot on that, on building empowerment, because once you know your history, once you know where you're coming from, that also connects to like self-esteem and all those other things that we need within our community. So that's kind of like what we do in the schools. We also have like our clothing, so as you can see, like the icon that I have there is the Stolen from Africa shirts. We've had like many artists represent, including like some members from Wu-Tang. We had like Kendrick Lamar, like J. Cole, Taurus Riley, Jah 9, Protege, like a lot of from hip-hop to reggae to just like community members just doing things. So when we say like Stolen from Africa as a movement, it's really just like this like community like connector. There's no like sign up. It's just really a connection of like consciousness of people who want to like evolve and elevate our community and whatnot. On top of that, we do like like digital media. We've been really documenting a lot of the events that happen in our community. So if you go to YouTube/alldaysfa, you can see some of our stuff there. Our websites are stolenfromafrica.com as well as stolenfromafrica.org, which is more educational stuff, and then the .com is more the community as well as the podcast stuff. So we've been doing this since like 2004. I'm trying to think like what else to mention that's relevant. We just love our people. We love connecting. We love learning, evolving, and whatever barriers people put in our way, like we find ways to like evolve past that and find new opportunities. And that's why we're here on Twitter Spaces. We have I guess like a podcast or live on Instagram, which is called You Good Fam, and it's really just like a community like check-in where we just kind of create this like accessibility where things are not going so great or going great, and then we can like kind of share our experiences. So we have different topics that are like relevant. We also have like another show on Tuesdays that's on YouTube and Twitch called The Reminisce Show, and we focus more on like hip hop culture, primarily in Toronto, like really navigating like the history and the foundations, because there's a lot out here. Like hip hop did not start with Drake and The Weeknd, which these are people that we're loosely affiliated to, and respect to them, but there has been decades of history and people who have paved the way, and that definitely need to get their shine. So we create space for that as well, and that's a little bit about Stolen from Africa in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot more, but that's pretty much the gist of it. So we just like to build with people, inspire people, and make sure that our history doesn't get erased. That's the whole idea of Sankofa, because sometimes we got to go back to collect what we may have forgotten, right? So that's what's up.
So thank you. I just wanted to just add that how many young people have gone through your programs and then become really good conscious, I'd say, rappers who are speaking sense and doing stuff like Kemya and Rap Fresco, etc. I'm sure the list goes on. So to me, that's a notable thing, because looking at hip hop and how they've bought it out. A lot of the pop hip hop has really been bought out, but people came through your lines and are doing really great things. Meta Knights, if you could just tell us about yourself and what you're doing.
Sure. metaKnyts is it's like an Afrofuturist cyberpunk saga, essentially about the battle for the soul of the internet. And we're really trying to address three big social issues through the project. One is surveillance tyranny, and that's really about data ownership, data sovereignty, data rights. The second is around climate destruction. And the third is really about white supremacy. And for us, in many ways, so metaKnyts effectively is part of the Meta Group, which essentially comprises of the Internet Foundation, which is an NGO, which is really focused on digital human rights and ethical use of data in commerce and uplifting people generally through data. Then MetaMe effectively then builds technologies based on policy and regulation work that the Internet Foundation does. We've done a lot of work around, contributed to things like GDPR, New York Privacy Act we're actively involved in, and we've been developing a protocol for data sovereignty for a while now, but essentially hard and fast since 2018, essentially using blockchain to create a new kind of data asset. So then MetaMe, we see like this operating system, we call it a clean data operating system, which effectively takes the Internet Foundation effectively runs the network, the nodes, and that's an open source model. And then MetaMe then builds a platform on top of that allows applications to be built that use this clean data protocol that we've developed. And our lead project there is metaKnyts, because metaKnyts originally started as a way to awaken people to the tyrannies of data, kleptocracy from, being stolen and used by big corporations. And we think that is particularly relevant for our community, for the African and African diaspora community, because we see a big rotation, we see a big change. We see that data is becoming more valuable than money, but that data is also being used to manipulate and to influence us, and we're kind of sleepwalking into what we call slavery 2.0 through the surveillance capitalism, effectively. So that's really the gist of metaKnyts. So we started it as a project, as a comic, as a crypto comic series, and effectively to tell a story about emancipation and liberation in this new tech paradigm. And it's our sort of elevator pitch is, think The Matrix meets Mr. Robot on the road to Wakanda. And for us, I think what we've come to understand over the years is that we've got to start with people's minds. That's the place where the first battle has to be fought and won. We've got to get people to understand both our history and our future, and to write ourselves into that future. The vision and the plan effectively is then to use the story to galvanize interest, and then to use the story to drive adoption of technologies that give people more sovereignty, more freedom, and more agency. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot more to go into it than that. I guess the thing that I will just bring it home with is that we're focused on this generative art approach now. So we've got a series, a collection that we're releasing based on characters from the comic that we are we've got 4 incredible artists. So 3 are here today, Val, Tayo, and Nez. And so this is really a way, it's kind of top of the funnel, a way to bring people into our ecosystem, into our lore, into our philosophy. And so the first of these characters is the emissary, which is a key character in the story, which is bringing people into understanding what our sort of meta movement is about in that regards. But there's a lot of, we've got comics that are released, we've got a game that's being developed, we've got youth empowerment and education programs, but we'll get into all of that later.
Wow, amazing. many angles, and thank you, metaKnyts representing on You Good Fam. What really also comes to my mind is that Internet Foundation, so bringing it into work around policy, and I think that's very commendable. And I wonder, do people generally understand? Do you have any issue with people understanding what it is that you want to do outside of the comic, but in terms of the policy and where society is? I'm curious if how that has been received, and if people understand around data sovereignty. And I think what you said was was it data sovereignty? Was it protocol, the word you used?
Yeah, so we've developed a protocol. We call it the MPOD protocol, which is kind of creates a new type of data asset that people can own as property. It's a great question. I think the short answer is probably not, and the short answer is no. But I will say the space has changed so much in the last 3 years. I mean, we started the Internet Foundation back in 2013 as a response to the Snowden revelations, which was the first real wake-up call for the world around the importance of data, about digital rights and what was happening with our data. And I think even then there was a big concern and people awakened to it, but prior to then it was really it was a very challenging task to get people to understand what was the issue at hand. And in many ways, at that stage, prior to 2013, we were very much focused on really sensitive parts of the world. So looking at tech, security tech, like secure messaging and Tor network and all of these advanced cryptography things, and looking at things like activists in hotspots around the world, so like in Syria and after the Arab Spring, we kind of saw that their lives were at risk from their digital footprint. But it was very much something that was happening over in these scary places, not something that was happening everywhere. But then when the Snowden revelations came, it became apparent that this is a global issue and that we needed to look at this from a universal basis, hence why we started to talk about digital human rights. But I think even then, that was still quite abstract to most people. But since then, 2016, I think, was the big second landmark event, with the Brexit in the UK and with Trump's, election victory here in the US, and the exposure of Cambridge Analytica and Facebook's role in that. So that started to get people to understand it a bit more, all the way through to January 6th this year with, the insurrection here in the US. But even still, I think it's still, because it's not something people can see and touch immediately, it's less top of mind for people. And that's essentially why we created metaKnyts, effectively, to be able to talk about this in a way that people could connect with on an emotional basis, on a right brain as opposed to left brain kind of context. To talk about it in a manner that was entertaining but edutating in that regards. And I think that that's starting to open people's minds to it. But so I think on one hand, that, as I say, that's where you have to start. But I think what you have to follow on quickly with that is to put tools, give people tools that enable them to take action and to do things to make themselves safer and to start to, be active. We call it crypto activating. And, as we crypto activate people, which covers the whole gambit, getting a wallet, understanding, private keys, public keys, understanding NFTs, just coming into the crypto space starts to open people up to this world a bit more. So that's sort of our vision and plan, that metaKnyts will be the vehicle through which we start to get a deeper understanding with people around us.
Right.
Powerful,
Indeed. I'm glad you went right into what I wanted to ask about mention is how amazing it is that the way that you can bridge this information that, as much as it's so important and has such an impact on our lives. Like they say, if you don't know what the product is, then you're the product, or something around that realm. So all of these social media and so forth, where they're just using our data, but to use the comic and creativity. I know that Logic wanted to say something, but I just want to quickly ask, how, so you are into policy, you're into creative, and also you have a software side to this whole operation? Like you are in all of those spaces. I'm just curious how you, especially, you know, shouldn't say like as a black person, but I mean, I grew up with young people saying, when I was doing mentoring type work and having young boys say, I don't believe you worked in video games. And I was totally to my face like, no, I think you're lying. And so I'm just wondering like how you got into this, along this path. And if anyone wants to come up and ask a question, definitely just raise your hand or we'll invite you. I see Jay Wise, a talent out of the north, in the house. Thank you for being here. Seth, thank you for being here. Mamado, I've just seen the first part, but big ups to thanks. Andrea as well, thank you. So yeah, the question I just want to ask, how did your path look to get into such a range, but then having this harmony between them all, if that makes sense?
No, it does. It makes a lot of sense, actually. I suppose, look, by background, I've had a bit of a mixed background, but I suppose on one hand, I've had a bit of creative training. I was a designer, sort of. My original early ambition has always been to be an architect, so I was always a bit creatively inclined or aesthetically driven from that sort of side of things. But then I worked and I got into the web a long time ago, but from there I worked in lots of big multinational corporations. So I worked at Diageo and BAT and IBM. I headed up digital for automotive, aerospace and defense for IBM. So I'd always been deep into the tech, and really through most of my career I had been really fascinated about digital culture and really this intersection of technology and culture. And I knew that digital was changing the way the world operated. And I wrote a book back in I wrote it in 2009, but published it in 2012, the end of 2012, called the Digitarian Tsunami, which was essentially, it was like Web 3.0 and the rise of the neo-citizen. And so I was very much interested in this whole space about the web and how it was transforming society. But as I looked at this problem around data sovereignty and data ownership and privacy in more detail, it became clear after a while that we needed what we call a social stack. And what that stack has four layers. And one is like ethics, and that's simply a question of, well, what is right, what is versus what is wrong. And then the second layer underpinning that would then be regulation and policy. Well, what policy did we need to drive? So hence we called for a universal declaration of digital rights, and we created an ethical data standard, and we worked with the British Standard Institute to codify that into a framework for how companies should use data in a sustainable manner. And so the digital rights was about the state and the citizen. Ethical data standards was about corporations and consumers. And then we understood that the third layer underpinning all of that, and this is what became really important, was economics. And economics is really about what is incentivized and what is rewarded. And the whole crypto movement has shown us about how you can design, you can modify behavior based on the right incentive frameworks, and you can design systems where you can get specific outcomes based on economics. And then the last thing then is then technology underpinning all of that. So we've understood that you cannot really be effective unless you have this interwoven, interrelated social stack. So when we look at our protocol, this ethical data standard, or this data management protocol, it combines all of these 4 layers. It is based on ethical data standards. It's underpinned by legislation and policy, GDPR, CCPA, New York Privacy Act, etc. And then the key thing then is really around, with those layers, then how do we design an economic model around a new kind of data economy? And that's really our kind of great work, if you will, our great task. And we've codified that, but we're on the roadmap of actually bringing that to life. And then, of course, and the technology is obviously the protocol that sort of underpins that. So that part has been pretty well developed, and we've been working on that for over a decade, I think 12, 13 years now, to get to that part of it. But again, we know that is all well and good, but if you don't win the battle of hearts and minds, then even with an effective stack like that, it's not going to get adoption. So that's what led to metaKnyts as a way to combine, I call it mythos and logos. The logos, the logical side of it, and then the mythos is in the mythology and the belief system that accompanies that. So metaKnyts really is designed to be that part that asks the question of why this is important and why we need to adopt this stuff, and from that to drive the will to action that can then drive the adoption of the stack, the social stack that we spent a lot of time designing.
Amazing. I'm always conscious when someone tells me about their time, so I'm just going to do a call at the time. And I know Logic was going to say something, so if you want to jump up.
Yeah, no, I'm just taking all this knowledge in and just soaking it up, because I'm new to this whole digital space, so I'm coming in with fresh ears, but it's super intriguing to me. And oftentimes when it comes to these conversations, this is not the people who are hosting it. So I'm glad to see that we out here, man, we everywhere, and it's always been like that. But in terms of accessibility or even knowing where to go, I'm slowly getting in those spaces. So big up to everything that you all are doing right now, man. It seems really powerful, and just the way how you're able to explain it, I can tell that you know what you're talking about, man. So big up. One thing that came to mind when your speaker was talking about slavery 2.0, and I'm curious if you can expand a little more on that perspective, because I find that very, very interesting, especially as moving to these digital spaces.
Sure, and I'm going to rely on my team to let me know when I need to jump and join the AMA that we're having. So if I do have to drop shortly, please excuse me.
No worries.
But yeah, look, one of the challenges with all of this space, right, is it's highly complex, right? And one of the things that I spend a lot of time trying to do is just simplify a way to talk about it and to think about it. And when I think about digital rights, generally, there are basically 3 underpinning pillars. So when we created our ethical data standard and our Universal Declaration of Digital Rights, I looked at all the things that were in that, and you can basically summarize them all under 3 pillars. And one is privacy, which is kind of the ability to control who has what information about you. The second is property. And property is a really critical one, because that's the foundation of law generally. Certainly Western law is all based on this principle of property. So if we can get this transition where we can accept that digital items can be property, which is what the crypto space has really done, and the NFT space has really excelled in that. It's still at very early stages, but essentially what we've done through NFTs is establish that digital items can become property, that you can have all the usual property rights that we have in the physical world in the digital world. But the third one, to your question and to your point, is agency. And this is the really critical one in that sense, because agency is the ability to make free decisions, free will. So when we look at our rights, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of choice, this is all talks to agency. But the problem that we're having, and this is starting to become apparent now, and again, we've seen this particularly with 2016, with the Trump's victory, and with Brexit, it's very much that the whole political landscape now in terms of policy, and look at voter registration in the US right now as an example, right? The battle now is about trying to prevent people of color from being able to vote because of the inevitability of people of color being the majority of the country. So it's nothing new. I mean, it goes back to what happened prior to the civil rights movement. If you can exclude people from the legislative process, then you can restrict their rights and restrict their freedoms. So, and that ultimately to me is the threat. And if the problem with the digital enslavement that is happening right now, and I don't want to sound negative and dystopic, but I do think that we have to understand the threat is not just something on the horizon; it's something that's here already with us. But what happens is that it's like, it always reminds me of this Goethe quote. In fact, I think we use it in the first episode of our comic. There are none who are more enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. And I think that's what it really all comes down to. If we don't even know that our freedoms have been taken, and if all the choices that we make are based on manipulation and coercion to the extent that we're not even aware of it, then but it's like the slow boiling frog. But before we realize it, we're in a new kind of slavery that we don't even know how to get out of. So that's really where I think the threat is for us, and I think it's particularly deep and apparent for black people specifically, people of color more generally, because we have the power to tip the political landscape. And so, if we don't, there's a big effort to prevent us from being able to do that. And I think it plays out very, very deeply and comprehensively in the cyberspace.
Yo, man, that's incredible, man. And I know that you mentioned that you have to go shortly, but I just have a follow-up, just for someone like myself who's just getting new to this whole blockchain NFT space, and just really seeing ways that we can again have that autonomy, that agency that you speak of in a space. What are some things that right off the top that we need to be thinking about, or at least doing some more research on, and just to get our feet wet?
I mean, I think for me the first stage, I do believe that the technology, as much as the technology is the problem, let me rephrase that. I don't think the technology per se is the problem. I think it's the people behind the technology that make the technology the problem. And the important thing is, I think the technology is part of the solution. It's a powerful part of the solution for us, and we see that with cryptocurrency is a way for us to reinvent money. And we could talk for hours about how the monetary system has been designed to rob us of what is ours. I mean, you look at Africa as a continent, it is, in terms of mineral resources, human resources, and natural resources, it is the richest continent on the planet, without shadow of a doubt. Every year, $500 billion leaves Africa to France alone. Every year. So, the monetary system, yet by the same token, African people are the poorest people because we have the least money. So how can it be that we have the greatest resources, yet we have the least money? It's because the monetary system has been designed to rob us of our resources. So for me, I think the first step is to become crypto active, to come into this technology in whatever way. And that's what I love about the NFT movement. I love the NFT movement because it's about two things. One, it is about community, and the second is it is about culture, right? And it's a great attractor. It's a great way to bring people into what this technology can do for us as artists, as creatives, as generators, as people who generate culture and value. So I think that, to me, if I was to summarize the essential steps. It's really just becoming crypto active, and once you become crypto active, this whole data sovereignty, it's a real essential part of the whole crypto movement and the crypto culture. It gets confusing, I know, and there's so many aspects of it, but it's a world that once you step into and you start to take that first step, then it more and more sort of becomes apparent as to what can happen and what you can do from that.
Absolutely, man. No, I appreciate that, man, and that's exactly why we're trying to create these spaces, and this is like our first like pilot, I guess, like, I don't know if you call it an episode or chat, whatever it is. We're just trying to just start the ball from rolling and just get right into it, man. So I appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and making this stuff accessible, because I think that's really like what we need right now. So yeah, man, Symbolic, man, what you saying, brother?
I'm just wondering if I could just one more question, if you have a moment for it, just because where we are in the conversation, I'm just curious because I've jumped in. It's been about a year. I'm about it, but usually in many spaces, people are so bullish that I don't quite ask this question that I want to ask you. Over and over, we're kind of sold on this is going to be different. This technology is going to be different. It's going to change everything. The internet, I'm pretty sure they probably sold capitalism that we know of that way. Facebook and social media, it was always like, wow, now we're going to be able to connect. And in those cases, we find that these companies are wedging themselves in between our engagements. And so do you think that there is a risk that, or how can we avoid this not becoming the same thing that happens with every other promise of this is going to be different and this is going to be egalitarian and so forth, and then it ends up not being? Are there risks, and do you see ways of avoiding it? I know your institute is definitely going to be a part of it. Speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, it's an incredible question. I actually think that if we are not careful, that obviously I'm very bullish on crypto, I'm very bullish on blockchain, but I do think that there is a very significant risk that if we are not careful, this same technology could actually create worse outcomes than we see in the Web 2, in the Internet 1 era, the Web 2 and the Internet 1 era. And because it's all immutable, right? And that it's a double-edged sword in many regards. So it's a very powerful tool and a very powerful capability, but that power and that tool can be used malevolently as well. So I think the risk of that is real, and we all talk about frat culture in the crypto community and in the tech community. This is why diversity, it's the same problem, right? If we don't have diversity and inclusion in the space, then the problems are not only going to continue, but they're going to get worse. And I think that this is what we see with, for me, I think data and AI, this is really what the future really is all about. And we've already seen the biases in AI. We already see it in the penal system. We already see how, through algorithms, black people get worse sentencing through automated systems than Caucasian people. So I think the danger is real. I think the danger I don't think I think we're at a crossroad in terms of this space. And I do feel that there is an urgency for us to get involved. But that's the solution. I think the solution is that we need more of us involved in designing the technology and designing the way the technology works and designing the rules of the system, the rules of the road. That's the only way we make the technology work. In metaKnyts, we have this phrase, which is like our sort of, motto, which is in codice aperto speramus. And that basically means in open code we trust. And that's really the heart of it. What we need is transparent code that we can inspect and make sure that it reflects and respects the policies that we have called for as a society. and that those policies reflect the ethics and the morals and principles that we want as a society. But if we're not involved in, it's back to that social stack again, right? We have to be involved in defining what is ethical and what is right. We have to use our citizenship power to drive that into legislation and policy. And then as entrepreneurs, as innovators, as technologists, we then need to design incentive systems and platforms and frameworks that bring those policies and principles to life. And it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen without us. And to kind of put it in a slightly different perspective, I would say that the world, and this comes back to the whole thing about climate destruction and climate change, because for me, that just, the extraction mindset that has driven in the industrialized climate destruction that we see today goes all the way back to colonialism. It goes all the way back to the slavery system. So if we don't actually get involved in defining these things now, then yes, I think it will get worse. I think that the prospects for us I don't think that things just continue the same. I think things either get better for us or they get worse for us as a result of this technology.
Wow. Thank you so much. And I want to just put out there, metaKnyts, that is a great way to jump into NFTs. metaKnyts coming soon. It's very exciting. Am I correct to say, an all-black production team?
Yes, we are. We are completely, from the comic production to the game development to the NFT work to our dev, it's all black. And that hasn't been completely intentional. It's just been the way that it worked out, but it's given us a way to be able to lean into what our culture and what the project, our larger ambition through it. But yeah, we're very excited about that. And that's sort of where we're sitting. I mean, it's not to say that we won't have people of other ethnicities in our team and ecosystem in the future, but we're very much, we want to make sure that the foundations and core are established with a very clear mandate about the role that black people need to play. And I think the point that skipped me before is that the world needs us to play this role. I think that's the really critical thing here. This isn't just for us. The world needs us to do this. We need to do it for ourselves, but the world needs us to do it in order to create something that actually moves mankind without sounding too grandiose about it. But I do think those are the stakes that we're up against now.
That doesn't sound grandiose at all. When you look at the fire we've walked through, and and I agree with you, and I think so would Malcolm X, and so would a lot of our great ancestors. We are in a position where uplift us. That's the whole point of Black Lives Matter, at least as a slogan, is just we need to uplift, or the world is still in the same position, really.
Yeah.
I want to go into the shallow end just for one quick minute. The world has changed so much so fast. A lot of people don't know about NFTs until I got introduced. Big up Black NFT art, big up African NFT art. Until I got introduced to Black NFT spaces, I didn't realize how much Black people were working together, collaborating, talking, engaging around the world. And so, I know you're in the tech space. You saw it. You know it was a thing. But I guess what I want to know is, what do you I don't know, phrase that in the form of a question. What do you do? How do you, when you look at where we are? Many people don't know, aren't engaging. But the fact that we are actually here in this very amazing time, when we are engaging, we're creating, we're working together, we're reflecting Afrofuturism and Afrocentrism. What do you think of when you see that we're in the future, basically, but so many of us are not? And Do any thoughts come to mind based on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we need to bring more people in and raise the ramp. But, the thing I will say, and that is something that has been phenomenally exciting, and I think is the key to our future with metaKnyts and MetaMe and the Internet Foundation, is that there are actually a lot of us here. That's there are a lot of us in the space. There are a lot of black people in tech, unsung, unknown, working as contractors and IT consultants, and, not sort of at the top of the organization, not getting the recognition, but with the skill sets and with the understanding. And I think this is the real powerful thing about the NFT movement and the Black crypto art movement, is that now there is a growing amount of Black crypto wealth happening. And look at hip hop, and I know that's kind of part of the theme here. Look at what hip hop has done. I mean, hip hop is a revolution, right? I don't know of a transfer of wealth to the poorest people in society. And you just look at America, and I know hip hop is a global phenomenon, and it's kind of it's the number one music culture. But look where that came out of, right? It came out of nowhere. And now you've got a lot of wealth that has been generated by the hip hop community within it. And I know all the problems that exist in terms of distribution and the man at the top of the system who's kind of siphoning it all off in that sense. But I think similarly in this crypto space, there is a growing amount of black people who are crypto active and crypto affluent, and that changes everything. I don't think that our project metaKnyts, it wouldn't exist without community support. I can say that 100%. I mean, we've been funded to date totally from the community. We haven't had venture funding for this project at all. We've raised close to $1 million through crowdfunding on Start Engine, with 84% coming from outside of the Start Engine community, which is primarily from our community. And a lot of our investors are first-time investors, first-time investing in any kind of stock. So, yes, I do understand what you mean, and that we need to get more of our people in here. But for me, it's a glass half full rather than half empty in that regards. And I think there's enough of us here at the moment to be able to start to drive that change, and we will get to a critical mass much sooner than we think, just from, it's that each one teach one again. With what we have now, if we continue to grow at the rate that we are, I think that everything is on our side to bring more people in and to get more people the affluence, and that's a critical part of our freedom, right? We're finding, I don't need to, everybody here, every black person knows the reality of the economic, let's call it oppression. If you did, maybe enslavement might be too extreme a term to use in that regards, but certainly we are facing economic oppression on a regular basis. And so getting black wealth is a key part of our liberation movement, and I think that that we can do that through this. We have enough people to be able to get this to a point where it's got enough momentum and enough inertia to give us more optimism and confidence for the future.
Thank you so much. I don't know, Logic, if you want to say any other words, but I want to just say, check out the tweet that's shared at the top. Everybody, please follow metaKnyts, and however you can support, if it's retweeting, sharing, grabbing that NFT. I know that it's a well thought out project, and thank you so much for your words. Logic, I see you.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm definitely going to check out that link as well, and I see some more stuff is being added, which is great. Love the participation. I know like these sessions that we're striving to have every Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern time till 5. With that being said, we got about like 6 minutes left. I know that we have some people who are listed as speakers. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in, add on. We always like to keep this like collaborative space, really interactive, and myself and Symbolic may be the ones hosting, but this is a collaborative space. So if anybody wants to jump in and add their 2 cents, please feel free to do so. And we appreciate it.
Everybody.
Peace.
Today.
Hey.
I just want to say that I just put another tweet on the pinned screen on the Twitter Spaces. It's a link to the emissary thread, and that's going to be the character that is going to be dropping first in the series. And it's a very long thread about the history of her. We finally actually get to show her face, because for a long time we had our silhouettes up that is in me and the metaKnyts and the metaKnyts Twitter page profile pic. But I want you guys to kind of get into the character. Our mid pass period and our kind of whitelist period, we don't call it whitelist, we call it blacklist, but our whitelist period is closed. But in the next, I'm pretty sure in the next if not 72, whatever the next 24 is for 72 hours, we're planning to try to open up the mint pass, or just the minting in general. So please get into that character. Please prepare for that, because this is a small room, so I can say that. But things are getting done. It's been a long. I've been personally working on this project since August 26th, right? So I've seen a lot. And I've seen gas go up to how many Gwei. I've seen Ethereum go from 2,000 to 4,000. And we're in a good spot right now. We're in a good spot right now in terms of what Bitcoin is doing, kind of approaching that high. And I feel like this project and this opening mint is going to be the catalyst for just a lot of things in terms of MetaMe, in terms of the 10 character series, in terms of the game, the series, all this different stuff. So I want you guys to be able to get this NFT, because it doubles as equity, and it also doubles as just having an actual digital asset in your wallet that will be the start of a very, very long journey. So yeah, that's all I need to say.
Thank you. You said it doubles as equity. Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, I would say that it doubles its equity in the crypto realm, because I really like this project because it has options for our stock friends, and it has options for me, our crypto friends. I'm very decentral. I do not use a bank, and I'm actually a little bit younger than the normal investing crowd. I'm definitely Gen Z, and what I've noticed about what opportunities Gen Z is going to have in terms of coming into investing is they can really start the ground running with crypto in a way where they're going to be participating in the wealth ship. But it's really funny, they can go straight to crypto and learn all this decentralized finance stuff without even kind of they're gonna hit a wall where it's I didn't even understand this stuff about traditional finance, but now I'm kind of seeing the world and how crypto works in different percentages and things. But I say it doubles its equity because once you have the token, it's a part of. So when you're collecting your NFTs, right? It's similar to it's exactly the same thing as collecting cryptocurrency. The difference between a regular cryptocurrency like Bitcoin versus an NFT that you're collecting is it's a fraction of a crypto. So say that you're looking to invest in an NFT project. Something that they can do down the road is add a pool of funds that will kind of complete they can add a pool of funds after it. Not saying that we're doing that, but what makes NFTs and kind of crypto launches different is that with NFTs you really just have that block transactions, but down the road it can actually become something that's an actual cryptocurrency. And yeah, that's a little confusing, but yeah.
I can add a little bit to that as well, just on what I was talking about. So there is a kind of rotation, and there's a whole crypto culture. Even if you look at equities and classic crypto like security tokens, that's a whole new model around securities in that sense. But I think the important thing, one thing, so as to be very specific as well, we have been running this Start Engine campaign where people can literally buy equity in the company. Metaiye Media, which is behind metaKnyts. And like I say, we've raised just under $1 million from that thus far, and we've got a couple of weeks left on that campaign. So again, if anyone wants equity in the project, in the company or rather, they can do that. The NFTs as well, though. So one of the things that we are doing, and if you join our Discord channel, you'll understand more about this. We're creating what we call the Order of Metaiye, and people become Knights of the Order of Metaiye, and that's all in the story. And we talk about the metaKnyts. They are the Knights of the Order of Metaiye through the story. But in real life, what we're doing with the Order of Metaiye, our mission with this project has been about education and inclusion, including financial inclusion. So in many ways, you can become a member of the Order of Metaiye either through owning one of our NFTs or through owning equity in Metaiye Media. So we've got 3,300 Start Engine investors, and we're one of the largest in terms of participation in a crowdfunding campaign. We're one of the largest because we kept the access point really low so that we could get lots of our community into the project. So and that means effectively you kind of have equity in the community, in the metaKnyts community through the NFTs. And through the Order of Metaiye, we'll be delivering a bunch of utilities. And we'll continue to have this double-thronged approach where you have crypto assets and traditional investment assets that our community can buy into, because it's about ownership. We want people to have the opportunity to own in this wealth generation capability. So in that sense, there are effectively two types of very different equities, and I think in a way NFTs are almost like, well, they're non-fungible tokens, right? They're almost like cryptocurrencies, except that they're not fungible. So when you own a cryptocurrency, what's really interesting is that you own a part of the economy around which that currency is centered. And I think similarly, by owning the metaKnyts NFTs, you own part of the metaKnyts economy and are able to participate. And there are all these other utilities that we will be delivering to people through that as well.
That's amazing. Thank you both for that. Thank you for the time. And I also want to draw attention. Val put in the shared tweet at the top. Step-by-step video research how to navigate the metaKnyts Discord. Yeah, I'm already signed up on there, but Discord bends my mind, so it's taking me time to really, I know that I'm missing a lot in a few different places. Also, big up Afro Droids. That's another great project that's already out there. I really see metaKnyts is just running in terms of being a black project, being all black at the present, at its roots, if I could say that, and all of the things around it, like tangible. The same thing I liked about Afro Droids was that they had tangible things that they wanted to do, like very different, but the focus that you have is just so very important. So yeah, if anyone just jump on that Discord, sign up, and get all the info. Logic, I don't know if you have anything in closing you'd like to say. But Andrea, I know had a question before. Andrea, did you want to ask a question?
Actually, it was kind of an accident, but since I'm on, I just wanted to say that the young lady who was speaking first about Gen Z, they are actually leapfrogging traditional investment vehicles. They will go right to the NFT, and it's just like a baby with a iPhone. They take to it really well, and I love this community. I love Dele's explanation of what he's doing, and for me to be participating in both levels of the metaKnyts economy as an early investor and trying to get these NFTs together. My only question was that, is this the part where it's open for the public, or is it just the ones for those who got the Mint Pass?
So we will enable Mint Pass holders up to Mint first, and we'll give it at least a 24-hour window for Mint Pass holders to process their mint passes and move forward and get that all squared away before we open it to the public. But the public opening will follow pretty shortly after that.
Okay, and I'll be notified.
Absolutely, Andrea, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. It's great to actually hear you. I see you in Discord a lot, so it's great to have you here and hear you in person.
Thanks, Deli.
Amazing. Yeah, man, this has been like a really insightful conversation, and I'm just, so super appreciative of everyone for contributing, and I'm really excited for, what the following weeks are going to bring, so we're going to make this like a weekly thing where we just come and build, share knowledge, inspire each other, and just get in tune to like this new wave. I'm excited, and big up to everyone who just been diving into this early. You guys are really like the pioneers in this, and I'm ready to jump on board. So big up.
And I just, before we close out, I was wondering if Cyber Yoga has a request. I'll bring Cyber Yoga up, and let's see. I see someone else was on stage. The Potluck DC. If you guys have a question? I approved Cyber Yoga, but I don't know if it's working. Okay, Cyber Yoga is up. I don't know if you had a question you had requested to come up, and then the Potluck. Anything?
Cyber Yoga, you need to unmute yourself, I think.
Oh, maybe they stepped away. All cool. Well, I think we've gotten so much, and I'm we are appreciative of not just, definitely your time here, but all the work that went into getting to this moment. So I definitely appreciate you. I see two potlucks, and they're connecting, so that's weird. One of them disappeared. I get the glitchiness of Twitter Spaces. It is what it is. But yeah, thank you, and for that work, we'll be keeping an eye on the work, and in general, the stories, the drops, all of it, the Internet Foundation. That all it's so encouraging that you're doing this work. So thank you to all of the family, the metaKnight family, and yeah, Logic. Anything?
No, man, that's pretty much it, man. Just keeping it, smooth, clear, and concise messaging. And yeah, man, I'm just excited to do this every week.
Let unmute herself or themselves. Oh, they dropped. Never mind.
Okay.
I did want to just say as well, I know we've spent so much time talking about metaKnyts. I love what you're doing, Logic, with the Sankofa project and the Stolen from Africa. I love to keep talking and work closely with you. Obviously, we're all soldiers of the same cause.
Absolutely.
And I love this. Thank you so much to both you and Symbolic for giving us this stage to talk about what we're doing, and let's grow this community together. So
absolutely,
I really appreciate that.
Let's get it. Alrighty then. So that's pretty much that for now, man. And join us every Thursday. 4 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll keep the conversation going.
If you guys, sorry, what you're gonna say, Dylan?
No, I was just saying excellent. Thank you.
Word, yeah, and if you are on IG, please follow us on IG, because on Monday mornings we do a check-in. You good, fam? We see how everyone's doing, and see what we're going through. Have an interactive conversation there. Logic and Mindbender on Tuesday have a beautiful show called Reminisce. The Reminisce show is about hip hop looking back in order to fetch it for moving forward, or for you say it better than me.
Well, just with carrying on the idea of Sankofa, where it's somehow we got to go back to collect what we may have forgotten, and there's nothing wrong with that, So we're just kind of connecting the past, present, and future all as one, and yeah, man, just making sure that we know where we're coming from, so that we know where we're going.
Word up. So follow everybody on stage. Follow us. We'll follow you. The community is growing. Lots of love.
All right, peace, y'all. Until next time. We out.
Adios.